Shrek, one of the most iconic animated films of all time. We all know the story. A movie made by Jeffrey Katzenberg is a giant middle finger to both Disney and Michael Eisner that ended up winning the first ever Academy Award for Best Animated Feature Film. And hey, Shrek was legitimately a funny, subversive, and emotionally driven film. It spawned an amazing sequel, a god-awful sequel, an incredibly underrated finale, and an average spin-off film. But you know what it means when a film series is successful in the 2000s? Video games, that's what. And the Big Green Ogre was certainly no exception to that. Funny story, so I had the brilliant idea to make a video on a bunch of different Shrek games, so I went to my local Play and Trade and got every Shrek game that I could find. And let me tell you, the cashier's reaction to this bizarre purchase had us laughing like idiots. They even asked me to take a picture of all the games I got. That was a fun day. So while we won't be looking at every Shrek game out there, I'll at least try to look at some of the bigger ones. With that said, I'm ArinTheWolf, and this is the Medi-Ogre World of Shrek games. Let's start with what's considered a launch title for the original Xbox, simply titled Shrek, or as I like to call it, Shreks Box. I actually owned this game back when I was a kid, so that'll be interesting going back to it. Now, this game is quite an interesting piece of media. For starters, on the front cover, it says new characters designed by Todd McFarlane. Yes, the same Todd McFarlane that created frickin' Spawn designed characters for a Shrek game on the Xbox. That would be crazy enough, but it doesn't end there. The game was also developed by DICE, the same developers of Battlefield, Star Wars Battlefront, and Mirror's Edge. Well damn, with all that in mind, the game must be pretty freaking sweet, right? Let's start with the plot. The game takes place after the first film's events, and Fiona has been captured by Merlin. Merlin would also later show up in Shrek The Third, which makes this version of Merlin retroactively hilarious to see. To rescue Fiona from Merlin's clutches, Shrek must perform good deeds to gain access to Merlin's tower. Also, gotta love this title screen. That's exactly what I think of when I think Shrek. Earwax. Now, right off the bat, I've got to talk about how this game controls. Being a big, lumpy ogre, you'd be surprised to see that Shrek moves damn fast in this game. When you're running in a straight line, the running speed is pretty alright, but as soon as you turn it a little bit diagonally, he takes off so fast he could give Sonic a run for his money. Then there's also the case for his wall jump. Yes, Shrek can wall jump in this game. In most 3D platformers, the wall jump has a nice pushback that also doesn't feel too powerful, which works for wall jumping. In Shrek's Box, however, you more so launch yourself from the wall you're jumping from, which can make even the simplest wall jumps nearly impossible to do. Considering how slippery Shrek is in this game, it makes most platforming an absolute cluster truck. As I said before, your main objective in this game is to perform good deeds. Yeah, because Shrek is wildly known for being the merriest man in the whole kingdom. That in itself is weird enough, but some of the things that the game considers to be good deeds in this game are kind of weird. Like, there's a mission in the game where you have to fart on a dancing cow.
Old MacDonald swung open his door with anger. That stupid cow. Every night she jumps over the moon and dances in my cornfield. I can't sleep at night. Shrek, do me a favor and pass some gas on her when she's out dancing. That'll teach her a lesson. I'm on my way, Shrek exclaimed.
Even for Shrek, that is just strange. Oh yeah, there are also dedicated buttons to just farting and burping. You could even create explosive farts by eating hot chili peppers and burping on your farts. This is a real game, yes. In all honesty, I did enjoy my time with the game since you could just beat up anybody you see and kick them into orbit. I wish more games nowadays would just let you punch everyone around you just for the hell of it. That said, even that has its share of problems. As you get further into the game, you'll soon realize that you can't kill a single enemy in the game. It doesn't matter how much you pummel them to death, they will always get back up. That's weirdly inspiring, but for the sake of the gameplay, it's a detriment. Some of these missions require you to keep enemies at bay, but since you can't kill anyone, it makes it such a pain to do. I mean, the game itself is T-rated already, so would being able to kill people give the game an M rating? I mean, there's nothing in this game to justify it being T-rated in the first place. Whatever the case, all of these problems add up to a game that is just a hot mess. That said, this game was considered revolutionary at the time. Shrek on Xbox was one of the first games to use deferred shading, meaning the game could handle real-time lighting changes without dropping in frames. Most games nowadays can't even do that. But all in all, Shrek Xbox may be fun when you're just screwing around, but when it comes to the main objective, it's too flawed to be all that fun. And I'll be real, outside of Shrek and the magic mirror, it has almost nothing to do with the film. You could put anyone else in this game and it wouldn't be any different. But hey, maybe the next game will be better, right? This is Shrek Treasure Hunt on the PS1, which was released in 2002. Being a PS1 game released 2 years after the PS2 does inspire hope, doesn't it? Well, no, because this game is exactly as gross as Shrek's mud baths. I mean, look at this frame rate. This choppy 15 frames at best frame rate is so ugly to look at. I mean, Crash Bandicoot Warped looks better than this, and that came out 4 years before. So how does a game like this look as bad as it does? Whatever the case, it doesn't help that the game controls even worse than Shrek Xbox. You chug along in the overworld as gracefully as a dump truck on its last legs. Not to mention, you could only jump and run. Also, do you like how you couldn't kill anyone in Shreks Box? Well, you can't even so much attack enemies in this game at all. Well, then again, they can't kill you either, so you just kinda awkwardly bump into them. In case you couldn't tell, you're supposed to be collecting items in the overworld to unlock minigames to progress the game. First off, collecting these items is a distraction at best. They're mostly just on the ground in a straight line with no clever thought as to where they should be placed. Once you do get to the minigames, they are pathetic. I only recorded 2 of the minigames simply because of how much nothing this game has. It's not even fun to screw around in this game like Shrek's Box. It's just awful. So frankly, I'm just gonna move on. I'd rather watch Shrek the Musical than play this game again. Alright, next up, we have Shrek Super Party on the PS2. Yeah, every big franchise during the 2000s at some point had a mediocre party game. So the game starts off with a pretty decent FMV and... Why? Who thought it was a good idea to make all the characters bobbleheads? And why? Now that in itself is already a big turnoff from wanting to play this game, but surely the gameplay is almost, if not as good as Mario Party, right? Well, don't quote me on this, but no. So with this game, I'll just simply list off the many things wrong with it, because trying to organically transition between them is just too much to ask, okay? Firstly, at the start of the match, you are given a choice between different routes, so it already kind of defeats the purpose of being a party game if you can't even interact with your opponents on the board. Secondly, instead of giving you a simple dice to roll, you instead throw a ball onto a board that already shows you what's that many spaces ahead, taking the suspense out of the equation. Thirdly, you don't play a minigame after everyone's turn like in Mario Party. Instead, you have to land in a specific space to trigger them in the first place, meaning you could spend more time playing minigames than being on the board itself. Fourthly, when you do get a minigame, the rule screen doesn't show you what you'll be doing during the minigame, so you better have some idea how to play these minigames. Fifthly, the minigames themselves aren't very good. When they are completely chaotic and confusing, they're just so boring. Sixthly, the main goal of the match is to be the first to grab 500 bugs, which you can earn bugs by reaching the end of a route or by winning minigames and being able to trade for better bugs with bigger points. While it sounds like an intriguing way to be different than Mario Party, it really isn't. Since there's no round limit at all, you could be spending up to an hour just running through the different routes, not getting anything done whatsoever. In short, Shrek Super Party, while it does try to be more than a Mario Party ripoff, doesn't do so in a way that feels either satisfying or even fun. While it is a more competent Mario Party clone, it's not something I ever want to go back to. Why don't we move on to a much better licensed game, Shrek 2 on the GameCube. This is another game that I played during my childhood while I was over at a friend's house. I mean, we couldn't make it past the first level, but it was certainly a fond childhood memory of mine. Unlike the last few games we looked at, Shrek 2 actually follows the film's main plot while still taking some creative liberties. About damn time, honestly. Graphically speaking, while it's nothing revolutionary like Shrek Xbox, it still looks decent for the time. As far as the gameplay is concerned, Shrek 2 is a 3D beat-em-up where you collect items and complete objectives with 4 different characters, each with their unique set of abilities. Each level has its own set of objectives to complete and special characters specifically for the game, like Little Red Riding Hood. At the end of a level, you'll enter the level's finale called Hero Time. In Hero Time, you play as one of the characters where they get to show off their unique abilities. These segments include Fiona singing to blow up some birds, Donkey riding his dragon wife to save Fiona, God, that just sounds so gross, and Shrek throwing a bunch of drunk mooks into a carriage. As a whole, the game itself is definitely one of the better Shrek games out there. I mean, come on, you can punch the eyeballs out of slugs and boil chickens alive. Unless you're vegan, how can you not love that? With that said, the game still has its problems. Like, your movement is really damn slow in this game, which wouldn't be a problem if it weren't for the fact that it makes basic platforming almost impossible half the time. In particular, some of these levels, like the Far Far Away level where you do Task for the King, can go on for ages because of how slow you move. Not to mention that some of the missions just plain suck, like having to protect Cinderella while she window shops. Like, come on, the shops don't seem to be closed, so why doesn't she just go into the shops and get a closer look like any regular person would? But in conclusion, Shrek 2 is undoubtedly one of the better licensed games out there. It looks decent, plays decently, and takes the plot of the film in a unique and fun direction. While it isn't perfect, it's definitely one you should at least check out. Well, that was nice. Maybe the next game we'll look at will be even better. So let's take a look at Shrek Smash and Crash Racing for the PS2. Now, right off the bat, when I got this game from Play and Trade, it became clear that the previous owner didn't look after the box art. This doesn't bode well. The game starts up with an incredibly badass montage the first two films to get you pumped up for some kart racing. Believe it or not, this game actually has a story mode. Shrek and Gingerbread Man are having a breath-holding contest when Donkey shows up holding Fairy Godmother's wand.
Careful, Donkey. That's Fairy Godmother's magic wand. You better return it to her.
But wait, if this game takes place after Shrek 2, isn't Fairy Godmother canonically dead? Anyway, through some wacky hijinks, Donkey turns a bunch of things into racing vehicles while also shrinking down his dragon wife with a very derpy face. So yeah, a Shrek kart racer. That'll be something, won't it? Well, regrettably, that opening montage is the best part of the game. Now, when it comes to kart racers, what you need to get right above all else is how it feels to drive your kart. It can't be too realistic like driving an actual car, but it can't be so uncontrollable that you feel like you're driving on butter. What does Smash and Crash Racing do? It takes physics out of the picture entirely and makes your movement extremely precise. Not even kidding, simply turning left or right will make your character perfectly drive in that direction with no drifting required whatsoever. Your movement feels more like the characters were running on foot and nothing like an actual go-kart. Like, you can drive, brake, turn, use items, and that's it. That in itself is bad enough, but even past that, the game is once again so freaking boring. I didn't feel any sort of adrenaline, pressure, or even anxiety racing in this game. It was just me perfectly maneuvering through the tracks without a shred of effort whatsoever. Doesn't help that the soundtrack is also generic as hell. I don't know about you, but the soundtrack is also pretty damn important in a racing game. I mean, the music in a racing game is supposed to get you pumped up, yet this soundtrack just feels so generic. I don't got much else to say. This was just one of the most in one ear, out the other games I've played on the channel, and a severely disappointing kart racer. And that leads us to Shrek the Third on the PS2. Hoo boy. Considering that Shrek the Third is unquestionably the worst Shrek film and one of the worst animated sequels of all time, you'd have every right to assume that the game is about the same level of quality. But would you believe it if I told you that this is actually the best one out of the bunch?
What?
I know, Shrek, I couldn't believe it either. No kidding, Shrek the Third is Shrek 2's licensed game, but better. That was a real sentence, yes. It's a 3D platforming beat-em-up where you collect items and complete objectives with multiple playable characters. Unlike Shrek 2 though, your movement speed is nowhere near as sluggish, the combat feels satisfying to punch people, you can perform finishing moves on stunned enemies, there's a meteor you can use to pull off special moves, there are multiple objectives that let you use everything in your moveset, and the platforming feels way better and like you can actually jump off the ground, unlike in Shrek 2 where it feels exactly like how Shrek jumps, as gracefully as King Hippo. Don't get me wrong, it's still just a standard beat-em-up platformer at the end of the day, but for a licensed game based on Shrek The Third, it's a way better game than it has any right to be. You can even play as the princesses at one point and have Sleeping Beauty make the guards attack each other. What's not to love? So yeah, Shrek the Third is the only one other than Shrek 2 I spent more than an hour on because of how surprised I was on how good it was. And that is saying something. Yeah, I think we can end on a positive note. So until then, my name is ArinTheWolf, and I hope you—
Oh no, Arin. You're not done just yet.
What?
You don't get off that easy. There's still one more game you need to look at first.
Oh, come on, Whalley. I looked at, what, 6 games in this video? That's plenty to look at, isn't it?
Oh, come on, Arin. This one is special. It was on a certain console in 2008. You know what it is, don't you?
Ogres and drunkies?
What the hell? That exists? No. I'm talking about Shrek's Carnival Craze party games.
Yeah, we still got one more game to look at, and wouldn't you know, it's a motion-based carnival game on the Wii starring Shrek. How fun! So the game starts with an intro and— Okay, what the hell? Why do Shrek and Co look like melting wax figures? I know he's an ogre, but he isn't supposed to look this disgusting. And oh god, Puss in Boots is one of the vilest and most putrid things I think I've ever seen in my life. These cutscenes just look absolutely rancid. There's no other way to describe it. I mean, it was desktop wallpaper material, I'll give them that. You know, seeing as how most of these games are published by Activision, and considering the company and their CEO have been acting like big pieces of shit lately, I initially wanted to make my profile name F Activision, but there weren't enough letters. So I just said screw it and went with— So, is Shrek Carnival Craze party games any good? Well, it's a carnival game that uses motion controls on the Wii in 2008. What the hell do you think? It's one of the worst games I've ever played in my life. Recording footage for this game was one of the most miserable things I've ever had to do in a video before. Let me ask you this. What exactly do carnival games have anything to do with Shrek? Absolutely, positively, most assuredly nothing warrants this game to be a Shrek game. Besides that, this has some of the worst controls in any minigame collection I've ever seen. The perfect example of this is the tricycle minigame. You'll tilt the Wii remote vertically to steer, and you shake the nunchuck as fast as you possibly can to accelerate! Wah! I've had to scream 2 times in this video. Why do so many of these mini games use the nunchuck when they could so easily be done with just the Wii remote? It doesn't help that the sound design is absolute garbage. Just listen to some of these voice clips here.
You're better than you look.
The trick is staying out of the gutter.
I swear to God, I didn't do anything to that voice clip. That's actually how it is in the game. I mean, what more is there to say? It's one of the worst experiences I've had playing a game in a very long time. But do you want to know how much this game costed me? Yes, this miserable mush of mashed up motion mechanics was not only the most expensive game I got at Play and Trade, but it cost the same amount as a Hat in Time does. So basically, I had to talk about this game. Otherwise, I spent $30 for nothing. Yeah, I think I've had enough Shrek for today. I know I'm missing games like Shrek Super Slam, but like, one can only handle so much Shrunk at one time. So with that said, I'm ArinTheWolf, and please don't be like me and spend nearly $100 on Shrek games. Stay strong, and live life.